Thank you. And our invocation tonight is being delivered by the past president of the Key Biscayne Interact Club, Emma Moisey, who's now attending Mount Holyoke, Massachusetts College, where she's working on starting a new Rotaract club. Emma, it's yours.
Dear friends, as we face uncertainties during this unprecedented time in our world, now more than ever, it is important to guide and mentor the next generation of leaders through Early Act, Interact, and Rotaract clubs. By developing minds, endowing opportunities, and igniting our passions, Rotarians provide a grounding in leadership's truest principles of believing in ourselves, thinking from various perspectives, having a vision, and being willing to make mistakes and acknowledging our team. We are grateful to be shaped by Rotary's inclusive global network that fosters unity, embraces diversity and equality, and facilitates transformational change to create a better world for all. A world filled with love as a conduit to peace, a love that begins and lives right in our own hearts. We must know that we have been created for greater things, not to be just a number in the world, but to be an integral and connected part of our global citizenry. We have been created in order to love and be loved. All over the world, Rotary, Rotaract in colleges and universities, Interact in high schools, and Early Act in junior high and middle schools promote goodwill without prejudices of gender, race, or sexual orientation. We may be comprised of different races, but we are all part of the human race. We are blessed to be part of the Rotary family, showing our love for our fellow man and for humanity. Rotary's spirit of fellowship and service above self reminds us of our social responsibility to make peace a priority. Continue to impact, influence, and inspire young adults like me to add the extra to our ordinary. What we think about, we bring about. Amen.
Thank you, Emma. That was a splendid invocation. I want to get a copy of that. Anyway, distinguished guests, club president-elects, and Rotaractors, tonight is our second day of 3 sessions of our 2020-2021 District 6990 District Training Assembly. We are so proud of the many projects that our district clubs have performed in the past year and the present projects going on with COVID-19, feeding food to so many that are so hungry. We have so many heroes among us in our district. It would take so much time to mention a lot of the names, but I wanted to come up with one name tonight that's made an amazing difference. And that one is Mike Stafford, you out there in the Bahamas, the water that you have been providing for years and finding more water for those that are in need over there. Thank you for being a Rotarian. Thank you for your passion and your hard work that you have continued giving us fresh water over there for so many, many years. You have been a lifesaver. And now we've got a very special night, and I want to say thank you for our group for putting all these great sessions together. We've got Wine Not with Patrick Alexander. We have Cooking with Cristiano. Do you have Believe It in Magic with PDG Jonathan Usher, who's live from New Zealand. We have Social Yoga, and then we have District Talented Musicians of 6990. So you're able to go ahead and click on some of those sessions tonight. And then tomorrow, please don't forget to sign in to our morning session that you click in the same way you did this evening. And we're very privileged to have RIPE, Rotary International President-elect, Holger Knack, who will be with us for an hour. And we're very much looking forward to him and many other breakout sessions that are going to be taking place. And now, Jennifer Jones. She is the president of Media Street Productions, Inc., an award-winning production company in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Media Street is proud to be recognized as a caring corporate citizen and was named Company of the Year by Windsor and District Chamber of Commerce, as well as receiving numerous international awards, working alongside political luminaries, royal figures, celebrities, and global leaders. She has used her voice to raise awareness and hundreds of millions of dollars to eradicate disease, support peace efforts, sanitation, water in developing areas of the world. Jennifer is currently serving as a trustee of the Rotary Foundation, and she is co-chair of the End Polio Now Make History Today campaign, raising funds alongside Bill and Melinda Gates and their foundation. So she is a leader in cultivating experiential fundraising opportunities such as Rotary's Polio Golf Day with Jack Nicklaus in Jupiter, Florida, where she was able to raise over $5.25 million for polio eradication in one day. Whether she's speaking in a nation's capital, exchanging ideas with CEOs, or talking with school children, her skill as a professional broadcaster and expert storyteller motivates others to take action. Jennifer's messages of hope and inspiration have touched countless people on 6 continents. Jennifer also contributes much of her energy to local organizations. She is past chair of the Board of Governors at the University of Windsor and the past chair of the Board of Directors at the Chamber of Commerce. She has been recognized with many awards and recognitions, including Rotary's Service Above Self Award and the Citation for Meritorious Service, the YMCA Peace Medallion, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal, and Wayne State University Peacemaker of the Year Award, a first for a Canadian. Jennifer is happily married to Nick Krandashik, a local family physician. They share a love for many things, including travel, cycling, golf, and relaxing at their family cottage, I should say. They share a thirst for adventure and reach the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, Africa. And we are really looking forward as well to being a host club for a Canadian global grant that's going to benefit at-risk children here in South Florida with the Nicholas Children's Hospital. It is my distinct pleasure to present to you Jennifer Jones.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate your very warm welcome. And it is such a treat to be able to be here with you all tonight. And I know that you have a stellar lineup. I'm telling you, I was looking at, do I want to do wine? Do I want to do cooking? Do I want to do yoga? There's so many great things that you've got ahead of you this evening. And right now, for the next little while, I'm going to share some thoughts, want to share some thoughts with you and talk a little bit. And then really quickly, I'm hoping that we could maybe get into more of an interactive dialogue. And I'd love to hear questions from any of you who are here as part of your district assembly about Rotary, the Rotary Foundation, personal questions. I'm glad to answer any of it. But I want to begin by saying thank you. Thank you for including me, first of all, in your evening tonight and being able to spend time with you. And you know, one of the things, you know, clearly with the pandemic, and I'm not necessarily referring to the medical pandemic, but the Zoom pandemic, is that we have been able to traverse the world. And I'm sure that many of you are finding these wonderful opportunities to be able to engage and harness the power of relationships and connectivity with Rotarians around the world. And so it's really a spectacular time to be able to appreciate what we do in our great organization. And you clearly believe this because it's a Friday night and you're giving of your time as leaders to be here tonight to participate and learn and hopefully be inspired at some point throughout the evening. Peter and I have been talking over the past couple of weeks, months about well, maybe not months, weeks, about what this evening was going to look like. And I got to tell you, I want to give a shout out, and this is one of those things you shouldn't do because there's inevitably someone else on the call. But I do want to give a shout out to Marcy Allam, who's on the call, because she's someone who I've spent a lot of time with, and at whether it's Florida Pets, whether it's, you know, other parts of the Rotary world, we've crossed paths a lot of times. And, you know, that's someone she is someone who is really, you know, obviously an inspiration to your district. And anyway, just a shout out to my good friend. Anyway, so I do want to, like I said, I do want to chat with you a little bit about things tonight and then get into questions. And first and foremost, I guess I was going to dive right into the connectivity that we are really engaging in at this point in time in our history. And, you know, obviously it's taken a global pandemic to bring us to this point where we're able to have this level of connectivity. And, you know, no one would have ever wished that we would have been in this situation, clearly. But there are silver linings. And for those of us who are here together tonight, this is one of them. It gives us this opportunity for us to be together, to learn from each other, to share ideas, to understand that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. And, you know, each one of you as incoming Rotary Club presidents, right now, you're embarking upon a very different year than you ever thought that you would be, you know, challenged with. And so how do you make this a meaningful year? How do you make this something that we all embrace and go forward and, you know, are able to lift up? And quite candidly, I think right now we have the opportunity to be more connected, to be more relevant, perhaps than we ever have. I was on a call last night with the British Virgin Islands, and the governor of their country came on, and he said, there has never been a better time to be a Rotarian. And I agree with him. I think that right now we are seeing, you know, some of the craziest of times, but through Rotary, the best of humanity. And for us to be part of that is, I think, something that is incredibly powerful and incredibly meaningful. So COVID, you know, who would have thought that we would have ever had to face something like this in our lifetime? And, you know, very quickly, as soon as our countries, both yours and mine, started to shut down, we saw Rotarians stepping up, probably more quickly than anyone else. And very quickly, we understood that we needed to take action because we are people of action. And so Rotarians around the world literally responded overnight with understanding the need for PPE, for ventilators, for food delivery to people who are vulnerable. And we all took action. And it doesn't matter, you know, what part you played in all of this. Our organization has rallied very, very quickly and very fast. So let me share with you that as a member of the Board of Trustees, I am very proud of the quick nature in which we responded. We talk about flexibility in our organization and wanting to be more flexible, more relevant. Well, you know what? This proved and tested our mettle. So very soon after the lockdown went into effect, the trustees met, understood that we needed to be able to provide money for COVID response grants. And so $1 million was released, and within literally 5 business days, applications were in, money was approved, and money was on the front line to where it needed to be. That money was expended, obviously, very quickly. We met again very fast, and we approved an additional $2 million to go into that fund. And up to this point, over $5 million in disaster response grants have gone out globally. Over $14 million of global grants have been repurposed or instituted to address COVID-19 issues. Rotarians have been on the front line. And we held a telethon about a month and a half ago where we raised over $530,000, which funded 21 additional grants that went out into the field. Again, because we're people of action, because we know that when something happens, we need to move. in your district, you know this better than anyone. You understand that when disaster strikes, be it a hurricane, an earthquake, whatever, you are moved to help people around the world. And I had a great opportunity today to look at the Robbins Fund, and I had never heard of that before. And I did a little bit of digging and got a chance to kind of understand who he was and why this is something that was launched in your district and what it's meant to the rest of the world in the subsequent years that it's been formed. And my hat's off to all of you. You know, I think that when things like this happen, we understand that we're part of, like I said earlier, something that's so much bigger than ourselves. And it makes me reflect upon our vision statement, Rotary's new vision statement. And if you haven't heard it, these are the words. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And I dare say that I think that in ourselves part of that statement perhaps is one of the most important parts. How we are individually touched, changed, moved, motivated, inspired to become someone, you know, better than maybe we thought we could be. It's that change within ourselves that I think is an enormous part of being part of this organization. Anyway, COVID obviously has changed the likes of what you have planned. And for many, you know, we're kind of looking around trying to figure out how to take the next step. But, you know, 10 years ago, I don't know that we would have been able to deal with this the same way with these virtual platforms that we have been afforded. And tonight, like I said, to be able to be on a call where we're together is really unique and very special. So as you are looking around your club right now, it's an important time to take a scan. Take a scan of what's going on. And if you aren't meeting virtually, please, you know, launch this kind of a program for your clubs, but take a look around and see who's not attending. That's one of the key things I think as leaders that we need to do right now is trying to make sure that people are not falling through the cracks. How do we make sure that, you know, folks that maybe aren't so tech friendly, that are a little intimidated by this experience because they don't quite know how to deal with it or what to expect, how do we engage them right now? How do we bring them in? Because quite candidly, I really honestly believe that post-COVID, whatever that looks like, I believe that this should be technology that we should continue to integrate into what it is that we do on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. Yeah. And so if you're a club, for example, that meets right now 4 times in the course of a month, and right now, you know, you're meeting online, what about going forward, you meet twice a month online and then twice a month in person? And that in-person meeting might be a club social or a club hands-on service project. We know from research that people join and people stay because of service and because of our relationships, the social aspect of what it is that we do. So we need to be able to provide that kind of opportunity for people. But look at the savings. Look at the savings of time, of resources, of financial obligation that have been, you know, given to us during this time, which we would have never experienced in any other way. And so, you know, I think that there is nothing more important than getting together and being in person with each other, because that's where we learn from each other. That's where we share our ideas. That's where we come up with our next greatest idea. But, you know, once you have these relationships established, it's okay to be able to get together and have a meeting online, a board meeting online, not having to drive from A to B, from being able to be in one country like I am tonight and visit you in another. And, you know, so there's I think a lot of things that we're going to take away from this to strengthen our organization and to make sure that our clubs are doing the best that they can possible. I want to give a shout out to Emma tonight for the invocation that she gave at the very beginning of the program. And she had some really powerful words that she shared with us, and an incredible framing of some of the stuff that obviously is going on in our world right now, in your backyard and mine. And one of the things that she said, and I loved this, I wrote it down: what we think about, we bring about. That was the last statement that she made. And Emma, I don't know if you came up with that on your own, but those are cool words. And I think that you should, you know, I don't know, make t-shirts. It's a great, but it means something. We do need to be intentional in what it is that we're thinking about and how we want to proceed, you know, through the course of the year, particularly for those of you on the call who are going to be leading your clubs. And, you know, like I said earlier, it is a different world, a different time. But as people of action, we think differently. We speak differently. And, you know, right now is a time that we get to think outside the box. And not only outside the box, but maybe break the box, destroy the box, and put the box back together again. This is an opportunity for us right now to be able to do that. And one of the things that we need to harness during this time is the power of Rotaract. And as many of you know, obviously Rotaract, at our Council on Legislation, our governing body for our organization in 2019, we had hashtag Elevate Rotaract, where we brought Rotaractors, our sort of, you know, the club that leads into Rotary. We brought them so much closer to us. And we said that, you know what, their clubs are now part of our organization. They're not automatically Rotaractors, or Rotarians. They've got a distinction where they can become even dual members if they want to be. They can be a Rotaractor and a Rotarian. But we wanted to bring them closer to us to make sure that they understood that their participation in what we're doing is so relevant and so important. And tonight, I really want to share with you the value of what Rotaract means to our organization, and for you to take a scan again of your clubs, of your community, to make sure that you're looking out for these young people and providing an opportunity for service. You know, we think of them as the farm team sometime, and that's not really accurate. What we need to be thinking of is the cross mentorship that we have with them and how we can benefit both sides from these relationships. You know, this year and last year at the International Assembly, which is held every January, has been in San Diego and will now be moving to Orlando, to your great state. And every January, these governors-elect, all 530 plus of them, get together, and that's where they're trained. And for the past 2 years, we've had Rotaractors in attendance, Rotaract leaders. And, you know, it's been a profound shift. And one of the sessions, the very first session 2 years ago, I popped into early minutes into the session because I wanted to see how it was going to kind of unfold and what kind of dynamic would there be. And there was a conversation going on about public image, about, you know, our public relations within our organization. And there was a governor, there was 2 Rotaractors and 15 governors-elect sitting in the room. There was a governor-elect who made sort of a throwaway comment to the effect of, well, you know, we'll just have you help us with our social media because that's, you know how to do that, and, you know, us old guys don't know how to do it, kind of thing. And you know, one of the Rotaractors put up his hand and he said, well, you know, I appreciate what you're saying, that, you know, of course we can help you. He said, but what you need to understand is that we need you to teach us how to communicate and what the messages are. And it was such an amazing light bulb moment of 2 different worlds colliding and yet realizing we rely upon each other. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to do. And we need to realize that Rotaractors and some of the young professionals in our club need to be empowered. They need to be given something meaningful to do in order to become engaged and to understand the relevance of our organization. And so I challenge you to look around, as I say, the landscape of your clubs and to think about how you can make this change something that is either enhancing what you already do or maybe opening a new chapter, because for many of us, it might be. So Peter mentioned at the very beginning, and this is, there's two things, or well, I guess one topic that I want to talk about, and then I want to switch into questions and answers. But polio, you know, we have been at this for more than 30 years, the eradication of polio. And the past 2 days have been interesting because the past president, Sir Clem Renouf from Australia, who was the president of the day, who actually took us into this journey, a day and a half, 2 days ago, passed away. And he was 99 years old, a life well lived. But I really wish so much that he had been able to see the eradication of this disease. And we are, as we know from the videos that we were watching at the very beginning of this, we are this close to making sure that that disease does not affect another child, but we're not there. So during COVID, and this is something quite candidly, I want you to know about tonight if you haven't heard any of this, because I think we should be shouting this from the rafters. This is a story that we should be telling loud and proud. So more than 30 years ago, Rotarians, we formed a public health infrastructure globally. It exists now in more than 70 countries, primarily in India, Africa, Asia. And those health centers, they're able to do testing, they're able to do frontline mobilization. And hundreds of millions of children, each year 400 million plus children are immunized. And these workers play an incredible role in making sure that that happens. Well, COVID struck and we had to take a step back. And we had to say that, you know what, right now we need to make COVID a priority. So what were we able to do? We were able to pivot on a dime and turn our polio workforce into a COVID workforce, actually a dual workforce. Because while we've had to take a step back from door-to-door immunizations and mass immunizations for a couple of months, we haven't stopped surveillance. We haven't stopped contact tracing. We've continued to do all of this because not only are we identifying polio, we're identifying COVID. And so we've been able to make sure that this is such a gift that we are able to shut down or be a part of shutting down this virus in real time. And we know that in Nigeria, just a few years ago, when we had the outbreak of Ebola there, it was this exact same public health infrastructure that was able to put a lid and shut down Ebola in its tracks. And right now, that's exactly what we're doing. Now, we do have some really good news on the horizon, and that is one of our endemic countries, Nigeria, is this August 4 years without a case of polio. And 3 years, yes, I see Peter clapping, yes, it's a clappable moment. After 3 years of not having a case, a country can be then taken off of the endemic list. And so certification is what needs to happen. And that's slated for sometime, I believe, close to August of this year. And not only will that mean that Nigeria, as one of the 3 endemic countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria, will come off the list, it means the entire African continent will be polio-free. And what a celebration that is. But it does leave us with 2 countries and 2 very challenging and difficult countries to be able to cross the finish line. And yet we have been making great inroads and wonderful progress in these countries. Just before the pandemic hit, our president-elect, who you're going to hear from tomorrow, Holger Panak, along with our past president, Ravi Ravindran, and the chair of our International Polio Plus Committee, Mike McGovern, met with Imran Khan, the president of Pakistan, and they put their full resources and their full defense force behind making sure that we were going to get every last child. And part of the problem is that, these are open borders, and, the disease is able to go back and forth. There are tumultuous things that are going on in these countries. And so we're doing a lot, and we're getting a lot of support. We're getting a lot of movement, and we're going to make sure that this disease is taken off of the face of the planet. Now, one of the things we need to do, obviously, is we need to raise funds. And so, as Peter mentioned at the very beginning in my introduction, one of the ways that I've been able to participate, and this is the last thing I want to tell you, and then we're going to open it up, is about Jack Nicklaus. So one of the he lives in your area, your home district. He's one of your own. And in 2017, at the International Convention in Atlanta, he was one of the guest speakers on our stage. And I had the incredible privilege to be able to interview him. And he was there because he's a polio survivor. He had polio at the age of 13. And as history would show, he obviously was treated and able to go on to become the world's greatest golfer. And so I had this privilege, this extraordinary opportunity to interview him in front of 30,000 of my closest friends. And so we had a chance to chat. But prior to that, there was about an hour and a half before we went on stage. And I wanted to introduce myself, but I didn't want to have a lot of chit chat because I wanted to make sure that the interview happened on stage and not backstage and then try to recreate it. And so I went over and I introduced myself to he and his wife, Barbara, and they were in a green room, and my husband and we were in a green room backstage next to them. And so as I was talking with them, Barbara was his wife was kind of looking around, like, looking for something. And I said, is there something I can help you with? And she said, oh, I would love a cup of coffee. And I said, well, there's a machine right over here. Let me get you one. And she said, no, it's broken. I tried it. And I said, well, you know what? I've got a green room next door and I know it's working. So let me go get you a cup of coffee. And she said, I'll come with you. So we walked over into the green room where we were. And I had told my husband, I'm like, okay, he's a really massive golf fan. And I told him, you know what, let's wait until the interview's done. And then I'll say, Mr. Nicholas, would you mind if I introduce you to my husband? Because then I would have made friends with him and it would have been an easier ask. So anyway, we walk into the room, Barbara and I, and Nick knows exactly who this is. And I can see, he doesn't do it physically, but I can see internally, he's like, oh, wow. And anyway, the two of them strike up conversation and become fast and furious friends. I'm making a coffee. I hand it off to her and she turns to leave and she looks at Nick and she said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm just hanging here. And she said, well, why don't you come and hang with Jack and I? And so Nick went over and he spent an hour and a half talking with them, just the three of them sitting there talking about life, religion, politics, Rotary, polio, you name it. They covered the gamut. And toward the end of the conversation, Nick said, Mr. Nicholas, I've been dreaming about an idea for polio. And he said, well, what's that? And he said, well, 4 golfers, 1 day, $1 million. And Mr. Nicholas said, you can do that? And he said, yes. He said, well, if you can do that, I will give you the day. And so that day was this time last year. And we had 2 foursomes, and everyone who paid $250,000 to play golf that day. And that is the amount of becoming, in our Rotary world, a member of the Arch Clump Society. And so there were people who were planning to give this kind of a donation to our organization. And so it was very easy to say, well, would you like also this added benefit of being able to golf with the world's greatest golfer of all time? And so that's how we raised the $5.25 million on that day. And at that evening, he did spend the whole day. And that evening, I said to he and his wife, Barbara, and you know this better than I do, they have the Nicholas Children's Hospital Network that they have formed, and that's been a baby of Barbara's. And I said to them, I will take personal charge of crafting and creating a global grant that will be at least $250,000 that will benefit your hospital network. And so I've been working with them over the course of the past year on identifying what it is that we want to do. And we've come up with a really wonderful opportunity for a telehealth program that addresses children's mental health, particularly for marginalized children. And, you know, we came up with this just prior to COVID striking. Yet I know now that this is even more important now than ever, because mental health issues have gone up exponentially, clearly since the beginning of this pandemic. And so this is something that's going to be very important. And so when Peter reached out and we started talking, I told him about this, and we agreed that maybe this was something we should work on together, because this is in your backyard. This is your district. And it's a global grant. And we often think that global grants need to go somewhere else far in the world. But you know what? It's an international grant for me. And so being able to partner with you, our two countries get to come together and do something that benefits your home community. And so I hope this is something that's going to resonate with clubs in your district and individuals and members of our great organization, because this is something that will truly be sustainable. It is something that we're going to have an opportunity to take a look at. How do we make this, you know, let's nail it on this grant, and then how can we expand it? Because there's clearly a need in both of our countries for continued support for children's mental health and for mental health at all ages, quite candidly. So that's a big thing that we're kind of announcing tonight, and I hope that you're excited about it, because I sure am. And so at this point, Governor-elect Peter, why don't I turn the reins over to you, and why don't we see if there's some questions from some of your presidents-elect and some of the folks on the call.
Yes. Jennifer, thank you so much for spending this time with us and for your enlightening presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
First, I'd like to make a couple of comments, and then we'll open it up with questions. Drew, Marcy, and Maria will kind of take a look at the chat box. So for those that are here present, please send out some of your questions. But on the mental health in children, let me tell you that you are so on point with that particular program. A lot of us personally in this district know a lot of people and a lot of children that have had mental issues, suicides, and things of that sort. And so it is such an honor to be working with you and to try to work in this arena to really make it a success. And the other thing, quite a few of us have had the privilege to go to India and do NID. Maria Kesti, who's there, Lee Farris, who's probably out here in our virtual world as well from our district, and others have been there. And one of the things that really hit me at the IA International Assembly out in San Diego this year was a presentation on polio. And something that really hit very much home to me is that how much work, money, time has been put into this project for so many years. And in some ways, there's such a connection with this COVID, how that disease could all of a sudden explode again exponentially. And so we mustn't stop the program. We mustn't stop what we're doing. You go to the high schools, they'll ask you, what's polio? But anyway, that is really something that we need to keep alive. So now let's turn over some questions. I know, Jennifer, you have to leave at around 10 of, so we only have about 5 minutes or so to get that done. So guys, opening it up.
Yeah, by the way, Jennifer, thank you so much. This is Drew. I've been monitoring the chat. How you doing? Good to see you again.
You too.
Here's what I like to do. I let some people be able to talk. We're going to try to fly through this in order of how we received it. So first up, Garth Friesen. You can unmute yourself and ask Jennifer your question.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Jennifer, very much.
Sure.
You know what? Given that we've got a shortage of time, you already had answered my question during your talk. My question was about how Rotary was going about leveraging its network that was established for polio to combat COVID-19. And it was just such a, I agree with you, a great way that we should be communicating that we're in a unique situation to be able to help. So thank you for your comments on that. And I'll go back to revert my question to others. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Garth. Thanks for your leadership.
Thanks, Garth. Next up, Jacqueline Russell. You had your hand up for Jennifer, please. Unmute yourself. I'll unmute you. Go ahead. Again.
Hello.
Jacqueline. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Joe Roth had a couple of questions. Joe, go ahead. Got to mute yourself, buddy.
Hey, Jennifer, thanks for the great presentation. Getting back to Rotaract, how are we to define Rotaract? Are they are Rotarians in their heart, but how has RI defined our newest part of the Rotary family?
That's an interesting question. In terms of definition of, what I like to say, what I like to think is that when we talk about Rotaract or Early Act or Interact or Rotarians, quite candidly, that we're talking about the family of Rotary. And for me, I think that's sort of the definition of who we are as an organization, that we attract people from all varying different stages of their life. And so, we've been on a quest for some time to increase our younger demographic of Rotarians and also our female demographic. Sorry, there's a little fruit fly that's flying around here. And for the past 5 or 7 years, that's been a really concerted effort to try and make sure that we're doing that. But we've really been able to see negligible growth in both of those demographics. And our presidents have been very forthright in saying this is something that we want to do. Yes, we do need to bring younger members in, and Rotaractors are young professionals. And in many cases, when we talk about particularly community-based clubs. So bringing them in and bringing their perspective is really important. And that's the part that I think is the important part of the equation, is that we understand that we need diverse perspective in order to solve the world's most pressing challenges. So we need to hear from people of varying ages. We need to hear from people from various genders, from different religions, from different, whatever it is, from this wide swath of diversity that we have. That is how we make our world different, is that we're not all looking at it through the same lens. And so for Rotaractors, I think it's important to understand that they are, yes, they're the lifeblood who's going to fill us. But I speak quite often about the fact that I'm not so convinced that our goal is to bring young professionals in. Our goal, in my estimation, is to bring young thinkers in. And I think there's a really important distinction there. And, you think about, you look at your own club. Have you ever met a 25-year-old who's old? Have you met an 85-year-old who's young? Yeah, we have. And so making sure that we're empowering people and making sure that we're making that connection happen, I think that's where the magic happens. Well, in 10 minutes, it's actually going to happen in one of the breakouts, but.
Thank you.
Jennifer,
We have time for one more question, Jennifer?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, time for one more question, or you got
Yeah.
it? So we have so many questions. Try to keep it relevant to Rotaract. You just mentioned, there's a couple of questions about Rotaract. One, can Rotaractors write a grant? And how are we going to deal with engaging more of them? I think kind of answered that already, but there's been a drop-off rate from Rotaractors to join Rotary. Was one of the other questions. You could just address that.
Well, Drew, it's an important one, because if you look at the statistics, only 5% of Rotaractors ever join Rotary.
That was the comment in the.
That is like, I mean, that is so demoralizing for those of us who all live, eat, breathe, and understand that this is, these are people who believe in us. So this whole notion of bringing Rotaract and Rotary together, Rotarians, Rotary clubs, strengthening that bond between us is very much to try and make sure that we're capturing that. And, you know, we see that Rotaractors want to stay engaged. And that's why recently the age limit has been eliminated from Rotaract clubs, is because they were aging out and then going away. Well, you know what? If you have a 40-year-old in a Rotaract club and, you know, they're all happy and doing their thing, everybody's engaged and doing service. Okay, you know, we're going to force them, make them move their cheese and move to a Rotary club that maybe isn't attractive to them. And that's a whole other discussion for another time. But, you know, we want people to be in a place where they can perform service that is meaningful to them. And if that's a Rotaract club, I'm not really concerned about what age they are. If that's how they identify with doing good work in the world, I think that's a victory.
Awesome. Yeah, and that was from Mike Stafford and Marguerite and a few others that I'm just looking at real quick. What I can do maybe is send the questions out to you later, if you don't mind, Jennifer.
Yeah.
And they can answer everybody, because I don't want to miss these. Every question's pretty good on the chat here. All right.
I can do another 2 or 3 minutes. So.
Okay. So.
Oh, can you? Okay.
So trying to pull a couple together.
The reason I'm not trying to be difficult, it's just my home district conference starts at 7 o'clock tonight. And so I'm zooming from you guys to my home district conference, and they have put me at the, I think, 7:10.
One more question.
One more question about grant. Can Rotaractors write a grant?
That is something that is being discussed right now, and the parameters are being looked at. But, you know, I will tell you in spirit that the notion behind that is definitely something that we want to embrace.
Got it. Another question, one quick one, Susan Gidrich.
Speed round.
Yeah, exactly. Are there any Rotarians that you know of who are working on a COVID vaccine? Does RI have support mechanism in place for this?
Interesting, very cool question. I don't have a lot of depth of perspective on this one, but I will tell you at the International Assembly this year, one of our Rotarian speakers from California, his husband actually is working on one of the vaccines right now. And we were slated to go out, well, we went out for dinner, I think the last night of the International Assembly. And we were meeting in the sort of lobby area before we were going out and kind of comparing what, you know, we had done over the past couple of hours, because we had had some downtime. And, you know, it was like, oh, well, I did this and I did this. I think I had a massage. It had been a long 2 weeks. And anyway, our friend Brian, his husband, he said, well, you know, I was in the room and I've been working on, you know, like this, you know, possible, you know, vaccine for COVID. And we're just like, what? It's like, I think I made a breakthrough. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like I was having a massage, you were curing COVID. This was back in January. I mean, only in Rotary can you find these kinds of like amazing connections that happen when you're talking with people. So I don't know the breadth and scope, quite candidly. That's just one small illustration, but clearly, we have a lot of very influential people in our ranks. And I would very, very much guess that there are other people who are working very hard and are probably very deeply involved in what's going on right now.
Well, Jennifer, a big, big thank you once again. What a great, compelling presentation you gave us. And the district has offered to give $500 to a Rotary project, and I would like to personally match that. And as a big thank you for the time you've spent with us this evening. And we are going to be having, obviously, this global grant that's coming together. I'd love to think out of that box that you were talking about and just come up with some just amazing, creative ways that we can be an influence to make even a bigger change to humanity, to the locals, and to the projects that we're trying to do. So, and good luck this evening with your next presentation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Peter. And you are not getting rid of me. Clearly, we've now established a relationship.
That sounds like a good deal to me.
We're now engaged.
Okay.
And so we've got weeks and months ahead of us of doing some good work together. And I look forward to deeper relationships with your district and all of your.
And the same with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And
Bye-bye.
enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.
So, dear members, we're going to have Drew talking about how you're going to be connecting here to some of the breakout sessions. So what do you think, you guys? She's a pretty compelling presenter, isn't she?
Yeah, Peter, we're going to save the chat. There was a tremendous amount of activity. Some people were saying that they wanted to keep going with Jennifer, which is
Yeah.
fantastic.
So we were lucky to get her. I want to make sure that everybody signs up tomorrow as well. We have some terrific things going on. And so make sure that you're registered and sign in. Drew, it's yours.
All right, so we have about 2 or 3 minutes. Again, thank you, everybody. I was going to cover some etiquette, but you guys did fantastic with that as far as being patient and all, and using the chat and using the Q&A. You're going to be able to do that tomorrow with Holger. Definitely, we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. He might have us more time for question and answer, but please use either the Q&A, as some of you did today, or the chat, whatever's convenient for you. And as much as we can, I want individuals to ask the question. But if we're running into a mute situation or if it's too difficult, I'll just go ahead and ask those questions just for time. But we definitely want everybody individually to be able to ask the questions that they want. Just to cover etiquette, we're going to do backup. First of all, we're going to do backups of these. We're recording all these sessions. You want to make sure that when you're visual, especially on some of the breakouts, when you will have video of yourself available, that you're dressed relatively professionally and watch that think that you're always on camera. We've had other sessions where people forgot they were on camera, and obviously some distractions were had. Make sure that anytime that you're dealing with from tonight till tomorrow, go to our district website, and if it says register, that means you have to register. If you already have that email. If not, please register if you're interested in that session. The other sessions that say join me, we made it a lot easier. All you have to do is click on that and bring you right into the session. We had some glitches that we worked out today, and hopefully that'll make things a lot easier. And that being said, again, thank you so much for your patience with our email blast, but we really had to fight a little bit with Zoom to get this thing off the ground more than we expected. All right, so that's it. And any other questions, I'll be here to stay for a little bit longer, Peter, but we have to get started in about 2 minutes. So that's it for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. Here's Peter.
Thank you. And Emma, if you can still hear me, thank you very much for being amongst us tonight. You did a fantastic job. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
And on the Mount Holyoke, we're going to find out who the district governor is, or district governor-elect, and to get a local club there to assist you in getting that started. So I'm glad you've got Rotary in your heart. And I can share with the people that are still on here that we had the privilege to go with you and your brother and your mother to Haiti. It's, I think, a couple of years ago now. And take a look at what's going on there and working with Inez Lozano and her projects on the island. It's phenomenal, the amount of work that has been done in all the areas of focus, basically. And then obviously there's the hand wash committee for Haiti as well, where they want to try to bring water to every community in Haiti. What a bold type of goal. And I guess if you think that you can wipe out polio off the face of the earth, why can't you bring water to every community? Kind of a daunting thing, but it'll get done. So anyway, thank you for all being here tonight, and we'll see you in some of the breakout sessions.